CONCLAVE is a thriller about the process of electing the Pope and the scandals behind the candidates. It's an exciting ride that will likely make a showing at the Oscars next year. Let's talk about it. In this movie, we follow Thomas Lawrence, played by Ralph Fiennes. He's the Dean of the College of Cardinals, making him responsible for overseeing the selection of the new Pope after the late one's passing. The conclave is formed at the Sistine Chapel, where the Cardinals each cast their votes over the course of several days. As frontrunners are established and secrets are revealed about them, Cardinal Lawrence has to make tough decisions that will likely impact the future of the Roman Catholic Church. So this is a political thriller. The way that the election works is that everybody puts their votes in, but a candidate will only win if at least 2/3 of the conclave voted for them. If nobody wins, they re-vote and continue this process until somebody does, so the vote gets skewed in favor of different candidates with each time they vote. Because when a candidate gets the minority of the vote, their supporters naturally start to reconsider, and they opt for one of the frontrunners, which of course forces some of the Cardinals to opt for the candidates that they hate the least rather than the ones that they actually support. So in some ways, it might seem familiar to those of us who live in a democracy. The Cardinals have to approach the election from different angles, and they form their separate alliances. None of them are allowed to contact the outside world during the election, but the outside world still has its influence on it, because the church's direction can be influenced by the external politics associated with the elected pope, which is a slippery slope that leads to votes being skewed in favor of values that are progressive or conservative, rather than electing a pope who works solely in the service of God. Among several other candidates, Thomas wants a pope with a liberal agenda that is reflective of the late popes. So even though his alliance's candidate doesn't necessarily want the papacy, they see it as an obligation when they consider the ideologies of the other candidates, namely Cardinal Goffredo Tedesco, who wants to weave his nationalist views into the church. It's a tough line to walk for the Cardinals, and this movie is just about being torn between tough decisions that each have their risks and rewards. We see our main characters Thomas and Aldo, played by Stanley Tucci, bicker about their course of action because they're torn between how to address the split votes within their alliance. And throughout the movie, Thomas is faced with several dilemmas, having to make decisions on behalf of the church that go beyond his responsibilities, and doing things by the book at the expense of potentially letting corruption get the better of the church, because breaking the rules of the conclave would unmask corruption, but at the expense of proving that perhaps there are issues with the church under its current agenda, with all of the dysfunction being evidence. Being torn by moral dilemmas seems to be the recurring trend with Thomas as he goes through many other struggles, including tests of his own faith. Those dilemmas are what make the movie really interesting, because as somebody who knows very little about the Catholic Church, I'm watching without any certainty in his decisions. You know you've written a good dilemma when the viewer doesn't know at all what the right course of action to take is. The conflicts are really interesting and exciting. Whenever a secret gets revealed about somebody, it's always a bombshell. That said, some of the secrets are a little bit soapy, specifically because of what it was being kept hidden and the fact that it was a secret of somebody sitting very high in the ranks of the Catholic Church. It's not impossible for a cardinal to have such skeletons in their closet, but if we're being honest, it really is a stretch. The hokiness is palatable though. It's not by any means ridiculous to the level of National Treasure, so it still feels very real and immersive. I think part of that is because of how very authentic the cast and production design make the movie feel. They obviously couldn't actually shoot this movie at the real Sistine Chapel, but they did a really good job of making the set feel authentic. The cast only adds to that authenticity, starting with Ralph Fiennes, who is absolutely perfect for this role. After this movie's festival buzz, I was curious to see how well it would deliver in the realm of potential Oscars, and there is potential for some categories. A Best Actor nomination is probable for Ralph Fiennes, but I'm not sure that he would actually win it. It is a good performance that deserves recognition, but I don't see him winning it over somebody like Coleman Domingo for Sing Sing. I've also seen a lot of buzz around Adrian Brody in The Brutalist. I just haven't seen that movie yet. Similarly, I saw some buzz around Stanley Tucci potentially getting in for Best Supporting Actor, which I very much do not see at all. He's good in this movie, but I almost want to compare it to Jamie Lee Curtis in Everything Everywhere All at Once. It's just not that memorable of a performance. Best Adapted Screenplay is one that I could definitely get behind, though. There are some very clever ways that they foreshadowed and alluded to things, especially with the influence that the Pope had on everything post-mortem. It's a really thrilling story that rewards you for paying close attention to minute details. It even has a little bit of humor in it. It's very subtle and rare, but honestly, that's a good thing. A movie like this should not be drenched in cheesy humor. So I really enjoyed this movie. It's definitely very calm overall, but it's very well written and well performed. I'd call this a really good watch. I'm reluctant to call it incredible just because of some of the soapy stuff and the fact that the ending is one of the few potential endings that I saw coming a mile away. But it's still great nevertheless. I just wouldn't recommend this movie to big spectacle film fans. If you're the type of viewer who goes to the theater for dazzling subject matter, this might not be the movie for you. Thank you for watching this review. If it brought you any value at all, please give it a like. It really does help the channel grow. I'll see you later this week with my review of Anora.